Matt Damon storms Jimmy Kimmel's stage, but a fiery clash over their tired feud joke erupts, ending with the star walking out. What sparked this heated showdown? Let's dive in. If you're new here, smash that subscribe button and drop a comment with where you're watching from. Let's see who's here for this wild ride. The Jimmy Kimmel Live studio in Los Angeles is buzzing, lights hot, crowd electric with anticipation. Matt Damon, the Oscar-winning everyman, is the night's headliner, his grounded charisma filling the room. He's here to promote his new film, a tense thriller about a whistleblower exposing corporate corruption, a project he's poured his heart into. Damon's no stranger to Kimmel's show, but their long-running, scripted feud, a running gag where Jimmy mocks Matt for being bumped from appearances, has worn thin for Damon, who wants to focus on his work, not play into tired comedy bits. Any push on that sore spot risks his temper. Backstage, the air's already heavy. Damon's manager, Chris, a calm but firm presence, warned the producers, "Keep it about the movie, no feud nonsense." He knows Matt's patience is fraying after years of the joke, and his words are a clear boundary. The producers nod, but their eyes gleam with plans for a viral moment, banking on the feud to spark laughs. They think Damon's good nature will carry it. Chris isn't buying it, his stare cold as he watches them hustle. "They're gonna crash," he mutters to a stagehand, who shrugs, oblivious. In the green room, Damon's sipping water, eyeing a monitor as Jimmy Kimmel kicks off the show. Jimmy's sharp, his monologue roasting Hollywood trends, the crowd roaring. Damon's face is neutral, his fingers tapping the armrest, a sign Chris recognizes. He's braced for trouble. The stage manager signals it's time, and Damon stands, adjusts his jacket, and heads for the curtain. No entourage, just a man ready to take the stage. Out on stage, Jimmy's rapping a bit about a viral movie flop, the audience laughing on cue. He shifts to Damon's intro, his voice warm but sly. "The man we never have time for, Matt Damon." The band hits a dramatic chord. The crowd erupts, and Damon walks out, his smile polite but tight. He shakes Jimmy's hand, quick, and sits, his posture relaxed, but eyes alert. The cheers fade, and the air tightens, the room locked on the two men under the lights. Jimmy starts safe, asking about the thriller, its themes of truth and sacrifice. Damon leans in, his voice earnest, diving into the whistleblower's fight, the stakes of exposing power. The crowd's hooked, nodding, drawn to his passion. But Jimmy's got a show to run, and he's chasing a spark. He tosses out a quip about their feud, joking that Matt finally snuck past security to appear. Damon's smile thins, his answer short. "Let's skip that one." The crowd chuckles, but there's a bite in his tone, a warning. Jimmy misses. Sensing a chance to play, Jimmy doubles down, pulling up a fake apology for bumping Matt in the past, complete with a cheesy graphic of Damon's face crossed out. "Come on, Matt, you love our little rivalry, right?" The crowd laughs, buying the bit, but Damon's eyes harden, his jaw tight. "That's not why I'm here," he says, his voice low, firm. The studio quiets, Jimmy's grin faltering. Chris, in the wings, shakes his head, muttering, "Here it goes." Damon leans forward, his tone sharper. "I came to talk about my work, not your tired gag." The crowd stirs, sensing the heat, and this clash is about to ignite. The Jimmy Kimmel Live studio goes still. Matt Damon's firm words, "I came to talk about my work, not your tired gag," cutting through the air like a knife. Jimmy Kimmel, thrown by the rebuff, tries to laugh it off, his chuckle shaky. "All right, Matt, no feud talk tonight," he says, waving off the graphic. But the crowd's uneasy, their laughter now a tense hum. Damon's eyes stay locked on Jimmy, his frustration with the relentless feud mockery simmering, a storm brewing. Backstage, Chris's hands are clenched, his whisper to the stage manager sharp. "Told him to drop it. The stage manager, rattled, signals the control booth to prep a commercial, but the director's holding off, ratings spiking with every second of Damon's intensity. Jimmy, sensing the mood darken, shifts in his chair, trying to pivot back to the interview. "Let's get back to your movie," he says, his voice straining for calm, hoping to diffuse. He asks about the thriller's whistleblower, aiming to tap Damon's passion for the project. Damon answers, his voice steady, diving into the character's moral fight, the weight of exposing corruption. But then he pauses, leaning forward, his tone hardening. "That's what matters," he says, glaring at Jimmy. "Not your recycled joke for cheap laughs." The jab lands and the crowd reacts, some clapping, others gasping, the room splitting into factions. Jimmy's smile falters, his fingers tapping the desk. He's handled playful banter with Damon before, but this raw frustration is dismantling his show. He tries to pivot, asking about the film's intense scenes, but Damon's not letting it slide. "You're not hearing me," he says, cutting Jimmy off, his voice rising slightly. "I came here to talk about something real, not to be your running punchline." The audience stirs, some shouting, "Go, Matt!" while others boo, mistaking it for theatrics. Jimmy glances at the floor producer, who's signaling to move on, but Damon's voice grows sharper, his frustration clear. "This whole bit," he says, gesturing at the set, "it's a distraction from what I'm here to say." The crowd's noise surges, feeding off Damon's conviction. Jimmy, caught off guard, tries to lean into humor, grinning. "Hey, Matt, it's just a bit of fun, you know that," he says, but the words ring hollow, and the audience senses it. Damon shakes his head, slow, deliberate. "Fun?" he says, his voice thick with disdain. "You think people want this stale feud nonsense? They want the real stuff." Some in the crowd stand, cheering, while others heckle, the studio crackling with tension. Chris, in the wings, mutters, "They're toast." The security team, two guys in dark suits, edge closer to the stage, but they're cautious, aware of Damon's star power. Backstage, the producers are scrambling, voices clashing in the control booth. The director's torn, the numbers are soaring, but this is slipping out of control. "Let it ride, but prep to cut," he snaps. Jimmy, still, on stage, tries to regain control, asking about Damon's co-stars, hoping respect will work. But Damon's done with the charade. "You don't get it," he says, his voice steady, pointed. "You think you can keep milking this feud for clicks. I'm here for my work, not your comedy routine." The crowd roars, some chanting his name, others yelling for Jimmy to push back. Jimmy's composure frays, his eyes narrowing. He leans forward, dropping the playful act. "Look, Matt, we invited you here to talk," he says, his tone sharp. "Maybe show a little gratitude for that." That's the spark. Damon's eyes flash, his voice low, cutting. "Gratitude?" he says, his frustration peaking. "For what? Turning my work into your tired gag reel?" The audience loses it, the noise shaking the set, some standing, filming, others shouting. Jimmy's face reddens, his hands gripping the desk. The floor producer signals for a break, but the cameras keep rolling, the moment too big to stop. Jimmy stands, trying to take charge. "All right, we'll take a quick break, folks," he says, forcing a laugh. The band kicks in, but Damon's not moving, his stare unrelenting, and the crowd's buzzing, sensing this clash over the feud is far from over. The Jimmy Kimmel Live studio is a maelstrom, the band's frantic riff clashing with the crowd's chaotic cheers, boos, and shouts of Matt Damon's name as Jimmy Kimmel calls for a commercial break. Jimmy, standing, waves to the audience, his smile forced, trying to signal control, but his eyes flick to the floor producer, who's signaling desperately to cut. The cameras, though, keep rolling, the director in the booth hooked on the skyrocketing ratings. Damon hasn't budged, his stare locked on Jimmy, his frustration with the feud mockery a palpable force. Backstage, Chris is glaring at the producers, his voice low. fierce. You pushed him too far. The security team, hovering near the stage, shifts nervously, waiting for a cue. As the band quiets, Jimmy sits, leaning toward Damon, his voice low, off mic. But the front row catches. Fragments. Let's just wrap this, Matt, he says, a mix of plea and irritation. Damon's response is a growl. You started it. The crowd's buzzing, phones up, recording. The moment already viral. Jimmy, feeling the room slip, tries to rally. The audience raising his hands. Folks, we've got Matt Damon. Let's give it up. The applause is uneven, drowned by shouts. Some for Damon, others for Jimmy to push back. The room's a tinderbox, and Damon's push for serious discussion is the spark. Damon leans back, arms crossed, his face a mask of resolve. He's not here for cheers. He's here to end the tired gag. The stage manager, sweating, signals Jimmy to end the segment, but Jimmy's not letting go. He grabs a cue card, asking about the thriller's director, trying to pivot to neutral ground. Damon cuts him off, his voice steady, sharp. You're still not listening, he says, loud enough for the mics. I came to talk about my film, not to feed your feud nonsense. The crowd erupts, some standing, cheering, others booing, the divide stark. Jimmy's jaw clenches, his usual charm crumbling under Damon's relentless stand. The host tries to laugh, but it's strained. Matt, it's just a show, he says, gesturing to the set. We're here to entertain. Damon's eyes narrow, his voice dropping, deliberate. Entertain? You're milking a dead joke instead of letting me do my job. The words hit hard, and the audience reacts, some shouting support, others heckling, the noise overwhelming. Chris, in the wings, nods grimly knowing Damon's not backing down. The security guys step closer, their presence heavier, but they're cautious, aware of Damon's star power. Backstage, the producers are in meltdown, voices clashing in the control booth. The director's torn, the numbers are unreal, but this is chaos. Keep it going, but prep to cut, he orders. Jimmy on stage tries one last time to steer things, asking about Damon's preparation for the role, his tone almost desperate. But Damon's done with the charade. You're wasting my time, he says, his voice a blade. This isn't about my film anymore. It's about you thinking you can keep this feud going for laughs. The crowd's on its feet, some chanting, Matt? Others arguing, the studio pulsing with their energy. Jimmy's patience snaps. He leans forward, his voice sharp, shedding the host's polish. Matt, we brought you here to talk, he says, pointing at the desk. Show some respect. For that, it's a misstep. Damon's eyes flash, and he leans in, his voice low, cutting. Respect's earned, he says, not by making me your punchline for a decade. The crowd roars, the noise deafening, some filming, others yelling. The director finally calls. The break, the monitors flashing ads, but Damon's still seated, his stare unrelenting. Jimmy stands, whispering to the floor producer, his gestures frantic. The house lights dim, the band's silent and security's closing in, but Chris is already moving, ready to back Damon. The audience is restless, sensing the feud clash is far from resolved, and the stage is primed for an explosion. The Jimmy Kimmel live studio is a restless furnace, the commercial break barely dimming the crowd's energy as they murmur, some chanting Matt Damon's name, others arguing in the aisles. The monitors hum with ads, but the cameras stay live, capturing every moment for the feed. Damon hasn't moved, his posture rigid, eyes fixed on the desk where Jimmy Kimmel stood, his frustration with the feud mockery a smoldering force. Jimmy's off stage, his voice sharp as he argues with the floor producer, gesturing wildly. Chris is in the wings, his stare daring the security team, two burly guys in suits now close to the stage, tense but wary. The director's voice snaps, through headsets. Get Jimmy back, but keep it contained. The break ends, the lights flaring, the band stumbling into a shaky riff. Jimmy returns, his smile tight, sitting with a forced calm that doesn't hide his strain. "We're back with Matt Damon," he says, his voice pushing warmth, but the crowd's applause is fractured. The room's still raw from Damon's stand against the feud gag. Jimmy tries to pivot, asking about the thriller's themes of justice, hoping to ground things in Damon's work. Damon answers, his voice steady, talking about the whistleblower's fight, but then he shifts, his tone biting. "That's what this should be about," he says, pointing at the set. "Not your stale joke for ratings." The crowd stirs, some cheering, others shifting, the split clear. Jimmy's fingers grip a cue card, his smile fading. "We're just having fun with it, Matt," he says, leaning back, appealing to the audience. "It's our thing, right?" Some cheer, but boos overpower them, the room tilting toward Damon's conviction. "Your thing?" Damon says, his voice low, sharp. "You're dragging my name through a tired bit, not letting me talk." The audience roars, some standing, clapping, others yelling for Jimmy to push back. Chris, watching, mutters, "He's got him." The security guards inch closer, their presence heavier, but they're still holding off. Jimmy's control slips, his voice rising. "Matt, you're a guest here," he says, pointing at the desk. "We're showing you respect. Maybe give some back." The crowd feels the challenge, their noise spiking. Damon's eyes narrow, his jaw set. "Respect," he says, his voice steady, fierce. "You don't earn it by making me your punchline for years." The words land like a punch, and the audience erupts, some chanting Matt, others booing, the studio trembling. Jimmy's face flushes, his hands gripping the desk. He tries to laugh, but it's hollow. "This is a talk show, Matt, not a TED Talk," he says, his tone cutting. "You want to lecture? Find another stage." That's the trigger. Damon leans in, his voice firm, unyielding. "I came to talk about my film," he says, nodding to the crowd. "You made it about your feud gag. I'm not your prop." The crowd explodes, some standing, filming, others shouting, the set vibrating with their energy. Jimmy stands, breaking the host's rule, his voice rising. "You know what, Matt? If you don't like it, you don't have to stay." It's raw, a direct shot, and the audience loses it, the noise deafening. Chris steps closer to the stage, his eyes on Damon, ready to move. The floor producer signals security, whispering, "Get ready." The guards close in, their steps heavy. Damon doesn't stand, but his presence dominates, his eyes locked on Jimmy, his frustration a tangible force. "Maybe I won't," he says, his voice calm, cutting. The crowd roars, some cheering his defiance, others jeering, the room a battlefield. Jimmy's had enough, his face red, pointing at Damon. "Then go," he says, his voice loud, final. The audience gasps, the noise peaking, some standing, recording. The director's yelling to cut, but the cameras keep rolling, the moment too massive to stop. Damon's unmoving, his stare unrelenting, and the stage is seconds from chaos. The Jimmy Kimmel live studio is a cauldron, Jimmy Kimmel's sharp command, "Then go," igniting a surge of cheers, boos, and shouts of Matt Damon's name. Damon, still seated, meets Jimmy's glare with a steely gaze, his frustration over the relentless feud mockery of fierce, unyielding force. The audience is on its feet, some chanting for Damon, others urging Jimmy to stand his ground, phones up, streaming the chaos live. The cameras, defying the director's panicked orders, keep rolling, feeding the clash to millions. Backstage, Chris is poised, his eyes flicking between Damon and the security team. Now steps from the stage, hands ready, but cautious. The floor producer's voice is desperate, urging Jimmy to pull back, but the host's too far gone. Jimmy, his face flushed, points at Damon again, his voice raw. "We gave you a stage for your movie," he says, gesturing to the crowd. "You don't get to wreck it." The audience reacts, some cheering Jimmy, others booing. The noise a tidal wave. Damon leans forward, his voice steady, cutting. "Wreck it? You're the one milking a decade-old gag instead of letting me talk." The crowd gasps, then roars, some clapping at his retort, others stunned, the set trembling with their energy. Chris, in the wings, nods, knowing Damon's holding the upper hand. Jimmy's thrown, his mouth opening, but Damon doesn't pause, his tone sharp, relentless. "You think people care about your fake feud? They want to hear about real work, real stakes." The audience erupts, some standing, cheering, others yelling, the room splitting further. The security guards move in, one stepping forward, his voice firm but wary. "Sir, time to go," he says, mindful of Damon's star power. Damon turns, his stare stopping the guard cold, calm but resolute. "I'll go when I'm done," he says, his voice unwavering. Chris pushes forward, his voice sharp. He moves. On his terms, he snaps at the floor producer, who's floundering, outmatched. Jimmy, stung by Damon's words, tries to rally, sitting back down, his voice shaky. "Matt, you're making this harder than it needs to be," he says, but the crowd's with Damon, their cheers drowning Jimmy's words. Damon stands, slow, deliberate, his presence commanding, his fight for a serious discussion unyielding. "Hard?" he says, turning to the audience with a pointed look. "This guy thinks a tired joke is worth more than my work. Who's with me on wanting something real?" The crowd roars, some chanting, "Matt!" others filming his stand-up masterclass in conviction. The floor producer signals security again, whispering, "Get him out." The guards hesitate, but one steps forward, gesturing to Damon. "Sir, please," he says, almost pleading. Damon doesn't look at him, his eyes on Jimmy, delivering one last blow. "Keep your feud, Jimmy, it's all you've got." The crowd loses it, cheers and gasps shaking the set, Jimmy's face burning with the sting of Damon's words. Damon turns, striding off stage, his walk confident, Chris at his side. Jimmy's left alone, the band kicking in clumsily. "Well, that was Matt Damon," he says, forcing a laugh, but his voice cracks, Damon's stand leaving him rattled. The audience's response is mixed, the energy fractured. Backstage, the producers are in chaos, the director yelling about damage control. Chris follows Damon to the green room where he grabs his jacket, unfazed. "Told him no feud," Chris mutters. Damon just nods, his point made. The internet's ablaze, clips of Damon's takedown going viral, fans praising his resolve, others debating the clash. The show stumbles on, Jimmy rushing through the final bits, his polish shattered by Damon's fierce stand. A moment that'll echo in talk show history. The Jimmy Kimmel live studio is still reeling, the echo of Matt Damon's parting shot, "Keep your feud, Jimmy. It's all you've got," lingering as the crowd's cheers, boos, and gasps blend into a chaotic hum. Damon's gone, striding, offstage with Chris at his side, leaving Jimmy Kimmel alone, his face flushed from the fierce stand against the feud mockery. The band's riff fades, and the cameras, still rolling despite the director's orders, catch Jimmy's strained attempt to move on. The audience, some still standing, filming, others arguing, is too charged to settle, their energy tied to Damon's demand for a serious discussion. Backstage, the producers are in disarray, voices overlapping as they scramble to salvage the night, while security lingers, unsure what to do now that Damon's left the stage. Jimmy sits, grabbing a cue card, his voice unsteady as he tries to pivot. "Well, folks, that was Matt Damon," he says, chuckling. But the crowd's response is mixed, laughter clashing with murmurs. He rushes into a bit about the next segment, but the room's not with him, still buzzing with Damon's call, to ditch the tired gag for real talk. The floor producer, sweating, signals to keep going, but the director's in the booth, barking about damage control, the ratings massive but the show teetering. Outside the green room, Chris stands guard as Damon slips on his jacket. His expression, calm, resolute. "They never learn," Chris mutters, shaking his head. Damon just grunts, his focus already shifting. The studio's energy doesn't recover. Jimmy pushes through the final segments, his jokes falling flat, his usual charm scorched by Damon's unyielding resolve. The audience, still posting, tweeting, filming, is more focused on Damon's exit than the show itself. Clips of the clash are exploding online, trending worldwide, with fans praising Damon's stand for his work, others debating his shutdown of the feud bit. The producers huddle, trying to spin it. But there's no spinning this. It's a moment that's already bigger than the show, a story that'll be retold as a talk show legend. Damon, meanwhile, steps out of the studio into the Los Angeles night, the distant roar of the crowd fading behind him. Chris is at his side, checking his phone, muttering about the internet going wild. "You good?" he asks. Damon nods, his stride easy, like a man who's said his piece and won. The city's lights pulse, but he's untouched, his focus on the work he fought to highlight. Back in the studio, the show limps to a close, Jimmy signing off with a forced grin, the audience's applause half-hearted. The story of Damon's stand overshadows everything. A raw, unscripted clash that exposed the emptiness of a recycled joke against one man's demand for respect for his craft. This wasn't just a talk show spat. It was Matt Damon, with grit and fire, shutting down Jimmy Kimmel's tired feud and demanding space for real work, leaving a mark that'll burn bright. That's the kind of story that sticks, folks, and I'm glad you're here for it. If you're hooked on these Hollywood showdowns, hit that subscribe button to catch more. We're building a crew that loves the real stuff. Drop a comment below, tell me where you're watching from, maybe Boston, Tokyo, or some small town off the map. What do you think? Was Damon right to torch the feud, or did he go too far? Like the video, share it with your friends, and let's keep this conversation alive. Stay real, stay bold, and I'll see you in the next one.